Yo, what is going on? Welcome to the channel. For today's video, it's going to be a really quick and simple one. I'll be going over 2 transitions that you can add to your music videos or your edits, especially if you're going for more of a simple and cleaner look. So here in After Effects, to start off with the first transition, I have these 4 different clips that I'll be using in order to create this transition. And for this transition, we're going to be creating that flash effect as well as creating that effect where it just gets bright and dark every 2 frames for our layers. To get started, we're going to create a freeze frame for both of these 2 layers in the middle. And what we're going to do is just grab the second layer, right click it, go to time, and then freeze frame. And what that pretty much does is just freeze frame the first frame of that layer. We're also going to do the same thing for this layer as well. Right click it, go to time, and then freeze frame that first frame. And now we have 2 images for both of these 2 layers. And for both of these layers, I'm going to have them at a different length. So this first one is already at 10 frames. And for the second one, I'm going to have that at 12 frames. So I want these 2 layers in the middle to be different lengths. And grab this 4th layer and just drag it back so that it aligns with our 3rd layer. And then what we're going to do is create that flash effect in between each layer. Create a new adjustment layer. Make this adjustment layer 4 frames long. Make sure that adjustment layer is in between the second and the first clip so that we have 2 frames on the left and then 2 frames on the right. For this adjustment layer, I'll be adding an exposure. Keyframe the exposure at 2 at the center and then keyframe the offset at 0.6 at the center. And then we're going to go to the beginning of that adjustment layer and keyframe both the exposure as well as the offset to 0. Also keyframe the end at 0. Grab all those keyframes, easy ease them. We're going to then duplicate that layer twice, click Ctrl D twice, and then bring these adjustment layers in between the layers where there's a cut. Now when I play this, we have a flash transition in between each layers. We're going to then create a new adjustment layer. And for this adjustment layer, we're going to cut it to where it only affects these 2 layers in the middle, which are the still images. For the first effect, we'll be adding a curves. We're going to click the midtone and just drag it up a little so that our layers appear brighter. We're going to keyframe that at the start. Click that layer, click U to reveal the keyframes, and then go forward 2 frames. Drag that curves down so that our layers appear darker. We're going to then go another 2 frames and just copy and paste these keyframes until you reach the end of the adjustment layer. So click Ctrl C and then click Ctrl V, and then just do that until you reach the end of the adjustment layer. We're going to then grab all these keyframes and easy ease them. Now, as you guys can see, our layers get bright and dark every 2 frames. For the next layer, we'll be adding a vignette just so that it focuses more on the middle of our composition, which is our subject. Now, when I play this, this is what we have for our final transition. So it's just a really quick and easy way to just add a transition. Moving on to the second transition, we'll be using these 3 clips in order to create this transition. So I have these 2 clips, and similarly to the first transition, what I'm going to do is just grab both of these layers, right click it, go to time, and then click freeze frame. So now the first frame of both of these layers are still images. For the first still image, I'm going to have that at 12 frames long. And then for the second still image, I'll have that at 10 frames long. Grab this 3rd layer and just drag it back so that it's aligned with our other layer. Now I have these 2 still images, and what I'm going to do is just grab these layers and just drag it back to the beginning of the composition. I'm also just going to cut this timeline. The reason why we have these 2 still images above our 3rd layer, which is our performance shot, is because even after the transition is finished playing, we still want our performance shot to be playing in the background. Now to get started with this transition, I want the performance shot, which is the 3rd layer, to be playing in the beginning, and then I want the transition to happen with the still images. So what I'm going to do is just go forward 20 frames, hold the shift button and click page down twice, grab both of these still images and just drag it to the 20 frame mark. We're going to first begin by adding an adjustment layer. Make this adjustment layer the same length as these 2 still images. For the first effect, we'll be adding add grain. Make sure the viewing mode is at final output. For the preset, you can go for whatever you want. I'll just go with this one, and then I'll also increase the intensity to 1.3. And the reason why I added this effect is because I want to go for more of that film look. So for the next effect, I'll be adding a curves, and for this curves effect, I'll be dragging the highlights a little higher and grab the shadows and just drag that a little lower, creating more of an S curve. And by adding this effect, it just brings out the values a little more. So if we have that off, this is how it looks, and then if we have that on, it just makes the values pop out a little more. For the final effect, I'll be adding a levels. I'll be increasing the input black to around 8.7 and also just decrease the input white. So I'll have it like that. We're going to now create a flash blur transition. So So create a new adjustment layer and make this adjustment layer 4 frames long. For this adjustment layer, I'll be adding a fastbox blur. Keyframe the blur radius at 7 at the center, and then we're going to add an exposure. Keyframe the exposure at 2 at the center, and keyframe the offset at 0.4. Click that adjustment layer, click U to reveal the keyframes. I also forgot to keyframe the fastbox blur at 0. Also keyframe the exposure and the offset at 0. Keyframe the end at 0. After creating these keyframes, you want to then grab all those keyframes and easy ease them. We're going to then duplicate this adjustment layer twice and bring this adjustment layer in between where there's a cut. So I'll bring the first one there, and then for the last one, we'll bring that to where the final cut is. So now when I play this is what we have for our final transition. As you guys can see, we have more of that film look when it comes to these two still images, but that is all I have for this video. Those are two really easy transitions that you can add to your music videos, especially if you're going for more of that simple look. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.